Hello and welcome to Ditching Hourly. I'm Jonathan Stark. Today I am joined by guest Denis Čahuk. Denis, welcome to the show.
Hey, hello, Jonathan. Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me.
So, could you start off by telling folks a little bit about who you are and what you do?
My background is primarily in tech. I started off as a software engineer, and nowadays I'm coaching and training engineering managers and tech leads and senior engineers and architects on how to deliver stuff faster.
Cool. All right, and you were in the pricing seminar. How many have you? You're a boomerang, right?
I'm a double boomerang. So this is my third time taking the pricing seminar. And I left you. So rather than introducing myself the third time on the workshop, I left you a testimonial highlighting my journey on the first one, the second one, the third one, and what went well, what didn't go well. And I think that's how we got started on this conversation for today's topic.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, especially for the people that are coming in for the first time. The pricing seminar is so long that it can be hard to sort of see what's coming. Even though it's listed, it can be a little bit difficult to kind of contextualize whatever the current lesson is. So could you share with folks what your experience was in like those different iterations?
I mean, I wouldn't really call them iterations. Like, to me, those were like really big mission statements. I didn't really finish the pricing seminar. I don't think I've ever finished the pricing seminar so far. Right? Like it's not really, I go in and I finish the seminar and wow, all of my problems are solved. Usually I go in and then there's one thing that really hits me with a brick. And then I get stuck there and then I deal with it. And usually I need much more time to deal with it than the pricing seminar lasts.
Wow.
But I do end up dealing with it.
Cool.
At least that has been my experience. So the first time, it has, you might have iterated a few times on it, but I believe the seminar has something between 48 and 50 lessons.
Yep, that was the original one. It's down to 36 now, a little bit, well, plus some bonus stuff, but yeah.
Yeah, so the first one, I dropped out at lesson 5. That's when it hit me.
What was the thing that hit you?
I mean, just writing proposals. The language in the proposal required that I know exactly what I'm doing, that I know my client exactly, that I know exactly what their pain is, how I'm addressing it, that I know exactly what terminology they use, and that I know why my services are valuable. And I simply had no idea what I was doing.
So what did you do with that? Like, once you realized that, like, how did you start to try and apply that in your business?
I mean, at first it was hard to stomach. I first stumbled upon your work when you joined Skills.The for a podcast on essentially steel manning, hourly billing, and then essentially giving up on it and introducing the audience to value-based pricing. That's where I got hooked. It's sort of that video circled in my network and everybody was all over it. And that is what got me inspired initially to join the pricing seminar with you the first time. Because initially going in, I was in software, I was an engineer, web developer, backend engineer, architect, tech lead, something in between in startups and smaller corporations, and then larger corporations, and then agencies, going back and forth. And all I wanted to do is just get a higher, first of all, to work on something that is meaningful and get paid well without me being paid hourly. The problem was, the better I got, the faster I got things done, and the less I was paid. And I had this gut-wrenching feeling that there is something wrong with that, and it's my responsibility to fix it.
Got it. So that interview resonated really strongly.
Yeah.
All right. So then you jumped into the pricing seminar, and how long did it take? Well, you said earlier that you sort of like get stuck, and then it takes you a while, but you work through it eventually. So what did that process look like the first time around with the proposals?
Well, I wrote the proposal, but I remember had a lot of resistance writing it. So for those that don't know, you have this amazing little setup at the beginning. It's really difficult at the beginning. We get through the meaty bit immediately, and we end up just basically, it's like a business model canvas in a very simply stylized way, essentially. It's a 5 template proposal. It's a very, very static script, and I just fill it in with my business details and what I'm doing with my clients and why they found me and what the outcomes of us cooperating is and how much it costs. That's basically the template.
Pretty much.
And that was very hard to write because I needed to have so all my clients I was working with hourly, being paid hourly on freelance marketplaces. And I have never conducted this conversation with somebody who would pay me but priced on value. So I never had this conversation, so I had to make it up. And I just couldn't imagine my ideal client for this kind of work. So that was my first hurdle. So I sort of tried to reverse engineer it, tackle it from different angles, sort of ask for feedback, look at what everybody else is coming up with. And it was all over the place. I got inspired, but then I saw, well, yeah, that's what I'm doing, but why would I price it that way? That doesn't make it. There was always one little piece missing. There was always like that little nugget of, like you have this complex gearworks and there's that little gear missing somewhere, and those large gears just don't touch. And then later on, I realized that what I was trying to do was essentially just continue being a freelance engineer / tech lead / architect, but just command a higher salary without being tracked hourly. And that was that was a me problem that had nothing to do with the client. And as long as I was attached to that strategy, to that, let's say, verbalization of why I'm doing this, I got stuck. And I had to stomach, my ego had to stomach me saying, okay, I don't know what I'm doing. I need to test this with the market. And that was my first, okay, how do I test this with the market? Like if I accept that this might not be valuable, that the core thing that I'm selling might fail and I have to repivot my business, that was a scary thought to begin with. Once I accepted that, I was like, okay, well, how can I test this idea? And the answer to that was then the next lesson.
All right. So that's meaning not the next lesson in TPS, but like that was your next hurdle.
No, but it was literally the next lesson in TPS.
Oh,
okay. Yeah, it was the next lesson. It just, I just didn't have a strong enough question for me to even push through the pain on lesson 5.
I see.
And then it started making sense.
Yeah, because I think we talk about productized services next, which...
Exactly. Because I was just selling myself, my CV, not my productized service. So I used my experience as leverage, as testimonial, and without that, I didn't have anything of substance. So letting go of that was the scary bit.
Right. And
then starting from scratch, essentially.
Yeah. So it's like freelancers, like you said, with your CV or your resume, you're like, here are the ingredients in this bottle. And do you want those ingredients? There's no offer, right? You're not with just normal freelance. No one's making an offer. The freelancers aren't making an offer. They're just like, hey, if you need help with something that I can help you with, I can help you with it.
Exactly.
It's just so diffuse. It's just like fog. There's no...
It's not even a sales conversation. They don't even send me an offer for what I'm doing. They are sending me an offer for what their job description was, right? So it doesn't even resonate on the most basic level of what they're buying. It's not even me who has put the duties and responsibilities together.
Yeah. Okay. So what happened next? So were you able, in the productized service week, were you able to sort of unblock yourself there? Did you find ways to test the offer?
So at that point, I was already behind on TPS. So it was a little bit of an uphill, effort, let's say, from that point onward. Because, even back then, I think you were launching these lessons, 2 lessons in a week, or sometimes the longer lessons were weekly. And I just hit a point where the productized services made sense. I just didn't know, but they were super small. Like the point of the productized service was that, at least for the example, for the exercise, it was meant to be small. I just didn't know how to, hire me full-time for 6 months. I didn't know how to productize that.
Yeah.
Because the valuable things start at the end of those 6 months, and I didn't know how to connect. I will sell you that thing at the end of the 6 months, and I'll figure out how to get there. Like that gap was then missing.
Right.
Of talking about the outcome only, and talking about the outcome in the words of the customer, not even the customer, but the tech lead. And even I didn't even have my positioning set up. So I didn't even know, am I talking to a CTO, a CEO, a tech lead, an engineering manager, or just somebody who's a recruiter?
Wow.
That was also missing. Now, no, thinking back, that was the main thing. That was the problem.
Yep. Didn't know who the buyer was.
Yeah.
Or who you wanted the buyer to be, right?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah, back then it was if you must have been in one of the first three. I was doing it every other day. A lesson would come out. So
yeah, it was quite action packed.
I did action packed. Yeah, I changed it to 3 days a week so that you weren't getting a video on a Saturday or a Sunday. Yeah. So okay, this is fascinating to me, and hopefully to the listener, because the hearing how you sort of like your individual hurdles and roadblocks and what was going through your mind, I'm reasonably confident will resonate with a lot of people. Just not knowing this stuff, it's like I've got like the feeling of starting from scratch, realizing that you need to start from scratch with some kind of offer is just fundamentally, it's like 180 degrees different than the way that people generally start out. They start out saying like, oh, I'm great at all these things. Do you need any of these things? So, all right, wild. Okay, so what happened next? Did you start to feel like you needed to work on this on your own for a while, or did you come up with a productized service that wasn't 6 months long?
So just to be clear, that I was really proud of when I had that proposal written and the sort of idea of what the productized service should be, and to sort of put the productized services back into the proposal. So, so I needed step 6 to actually put the thing into step 5. To have the doc there. And I, without changing too much, because I'm a perfectionist, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna change it. No, it's too much money. I'm nobody's gonna buy this. And I said, okay, I will stop putting my ego first, and I will commit on a number and test the market. And if they say no, then they say no. So I created a productized service that was like super short scope, but the same value. And I just priced it at 45,000. Which is outrageous. And I did send that proposal to an actual client, and it bombed. It was like, hell no. They're like, hell no. They're like, hell no. Unconnect, unfollow me on LinkedIn, and bye-bye. But I needed that. I needed that. That was my first time ever. I got paid more than that on a yearly salary just for being employed, for contrast. But I never put that number on something I sold. I never had the sales conversation for more than, $1,000 at a time. Even though I was paid, 6-7K per month for being hired as an engineer. So there was that, my relationship with money that was also involved with how I think about wealth and how I think about investment. So that was a whole nother tangent. And then that was really what I was focusing on. So during that period, I started, I saw that I had a really weird, writing the proposal had a really strong negative emotional impact on me. And I said, well, hold on. When I'm talking about money, when I'm selling something, it grips me. There's something not okay here. So I did another seminar. I'm a trainer for that seminar actually now for the EMF by Peter Sage. So that really helped me deal with my emotions regarding money. I needed that to just be okay talking about money and doing sales and being okay with abundance and just inviting more of it into my life. And once I did that, I could just let go of the messes I made, the proposals I wrote, and start from zero and just say, okay, well, rather than trying to say how much money I want for and then trying to make up something of value, I'll just write down everything I ever did, my successes, my brag list,
Your brag list. Yep.
My brag list, and I'll reach out to my former colleagues and I'll ask them why this was valuable, and my former clients why this was valuable, and this was a long journey. And then with all my successes, I said, okay, well, there's a lot of gold here. This and this and this and this is uniquely tied to me, and I want to keep doing that. Who would pay a high ticket price for this?
Can you give us any chance you could give an example of the kind of, so this is great, that you reach back out and had them explain what they got out of it.
Yeah, right? The why conversation essentially.
Right, but after the fact.
After the fact, correct. Like I
Yes.
didn't have a client, so I had the chicken egg problem. I need to have the why conversation so I can learn how to sell it to a client, but I don't have a client, so can't have the why conversation, right? So I'm having a conversation with myself.
Cool. And what do you recall, like what kinds of things cropped up? Were there patterns?
There were. So generally it had to do with wearing many hats and occupying many overlapping roles in startups and small companies. So generally now reading, thinking back on it, reading books like Team Topologies and the original Agile Manifesto, and now Dave Farley's work on continuous delivery, it essentially touched on the tactical aspects of vertically integrating a product team. So dealing with a team that is siloed, where the engineer is separate from product, where the product is separate from DevOps, where the DevOps is separate from, testers or designers or front and back end splits, any kind of silo environment. I usually was in that little overlapping Venn diagram where I communicated and corralled things together to vertically integrate towards faster delivery. And during that integration, I also noticed I was heavily focused on teaching and mentoring engineers on how to deal with their own craftsmanship quality and how to deal with communicating with product and vice versa. How should product set up the project to then communicate it down business jargon from a domain-driven design perspective down to the developers so that the entire circle is cohesive and collaborative and not essentially a siloed delegation cluster.
I hear that a lot from people, that their sort of superpowers being able to translate business jargon into developer jargon and back. And it's a theme. It comes up. It's very valuable. Okay, this is great. So what did you do next? Like once you had that information, because I kind of interrupted the thread. Like once you got that information and you were like, oh, this is where I'm really adding value. What did you do next?
I made a list. Well, then I continued TPS, but then the next things, drafting your leads, nurture campaign. I didn't know what to do in the email. I didn't have an audience, and then podcasts, and then etc. But then I said, hang on, what videos do I watch? Let's talk about writing on LinkedIn every day. And I said, okay, well, what am I going to write about? I had no idea, and it was difficult to write every day. I said, I'm not going to have a newsletter. I'm not going to make a blog, because I'm just going to get distracted implementing it myself and just tinkering with the code about it and actually deploying content. Because that's what, you know what I mean?
Totally.
And I said, okay, I have LinkedIn. I'm just going to post on LinkedIn. It seems to be the popular thing to do right now. Let's just do that. So what should I post about? And then I essentially just posted about what I did and what I was learning. So I said, hey, I posted on agility, testing, domain-driven design. It was all over the place. It lacked a central solar system. It lacked a audience. But I was posting about my experience, and in posting, I guess the algorithm sort of picked up on it, and I got suggested really good high-quality videos that got released that week on those topics. So then I watched those videos and I thought to myself, wow, it would be really interesting to have a conversation with those people. So then I started making a list and I sent them cold emails on LinkedIn asking them if they would want to have a conversation with me, if I can ask them for advice. And then I did once or twice and I was like, damn, we should have recorded this. And then the third time I was like, okay, hang on. No, this is now serious. I need to start a podcast.
Yep.
And then I had a friend whom I respect and sort of trust start off with the first episode. So Ty helped me sort of pilot the first episode. It was really clumsy. We had camera issues, low quality. We were all over the place. But that started it.
Yeah,
that started it. And then I had a podcast. And through that podcast, I built an audience. And through that audience, every guest I invited, I got really close friends with. I learned about how they did things. We coincidentally realized that we're essentially building the same type of consultancy, just attacking it from a different angle. Mm-hmm. Some people are attacking it from the vector of we are focused on C#. Some are attacking it from the angle of we are focused on mobile and e-commerce. Somebody's tackling it. We are focused on enterprise level integrations. And I am focused on that the craftsmanship skills, testing, and the human the human interplay of how to communicate between product and engineers. And then I got back into TPS.
Okay, so roughly, what's the time frame here? Because if you were in one of the first 3 TPS cohorts, that must have been 2018 or
2019,
so? 2019.
Yeah, I don't know which one the first one was exactly.
Okay, and so do you remember when you started the podcast, or how many episodes you have now?
So now I have 11 episodes. So we did have our babies born in between me recording podcasts. So
okay, yeah,
so they're 3 months old now. So I started the podcast last June or July.
Okay.
No, actually, no, I can just look it up. Sorry, if you don't mind me quickly cheating. So I started the podcast 6 months ago exactly. So that would be August. Let's say August. So that was on the tail end of my second TPS, I believe. The first one was just me figuring out productized services and going back to the roots and asking for feedback.
Back to the roots. I like that.
And then as I signed up for the second TPS, I also in parallel started working on my podcast. And as I got further along in TPS, I realized that you actually have podcasting as one of the lessons.
Yeah.
And I had my podcast done by that time, once I reached that.
There you go. The irony, right?
Yeah. I still don't have an email campaign, which is the one of the prior lessons. But that's why I'm doing it now the third time.
Got it. All right, cool. So in the when you posted your sort of experience in the TPS Slack, you mentioned that the big win for you in the second time through was writing a lead magnet.
Correct. So second time I did it, it just coincided with me starting my podcast. And I think that was when I was already enrolled for the second time as a boomerang, and I was behind. But then through the inspiration on just having the podcast already done, that gave me renewed energy to go with it. And then I just went back to how far along I went. And then, lesson 10, I got to lesson 10 finally. And then lesson 10 was the lead magnet. And then that was super easy because by that point, I made 10 or 9 YouTube videos, which were about 30 hours of conversation, 25 hours of conversations. And I had a lot of LinkedIn posts. I just said, I'll just pick one topic. I was talking about 6-ish topics. I'll just pick one and make a little presentation for it. And then I created a little nurture campaign for that and teased it on LinkedIn. I started posting from it and it ended up being very helpful. And then I just mentioned that this is something for free that I'm giving away. And I started posting on Reddit as well. And I asked for a few people who'd be interested in it. If they want a copy, just to drop me an email or to contact me on LinkedIn. That magnet was about test-driven development, but done in a human way, without the sort of, for those that know test-driven development, it is a very specific, extreme programming discipline that is quite contentious. Like some people like it, some people hate it, and it doesn't have really empirical evidence on productivity, but it does seem to highlight those aspects of coding that make things easier to change and cheaper to maintain into the actual workflow, even though it's a hassle to apply for some people.
Yeah. It's not fun.
It's not fun.
I want to have fun.
Yeah, it's not fun. I mean, it does give you a dopamine. It's like workout. It's not fun at the beginning, but it's like, wow, once you get rolling.
Yes.
And a lot of people don't like that. So I'd made a lead magnet on that, on essentially for my audience of software engineers who were in that, it's not fun, it's painful at the beginning. Should I start it? And it was basically some little tidbits of information on how to get started if that is where they are, if that is the point where they are stuck.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really popular. I got a lot of, had almost 100 people expressing interest in it. Mm-hmm. I gathered feedback, and that feedback then gave me inspiration to expand that presentation and to actually write a booklet. And then I really went deep back to the roots again on just this topic. I redid that interviewing. I went back to my brag list. I got the good stuff in. I sort of organized it. And then that lead magnet ended up being 70 pages of like semi-presentation, semi-infographic style that I've self-published on Gumroad as a booklet.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first time that I started talking to engineering managers, to leaders, where I said, okay, this isn't about you, the developer, this is about your team and what your team might be going through. And then at the end of the book, I just had a sort of shout out back to myself and my podcast, and general advice for what you should be doing if you're a individual looking for a career in tech, what you should be doing if you're a professional freelancer, and what you should be doing if you're the tech lead of a company.
Yeah, so let me stop you and ask some tactical questions, which are probably not important, but I know are interesting to the audience and can unblock them. So when you created the booklet, you self-published it on Gumroad, but did you like do the whole thing yourself? Like, how did you corral all that information into some kind of format? Was it just a PDF? Is it ebook? Like,
it was just a PDF. I went to Canva. I picked a template that's not invasive to the eyes, and I put in some neat fonts, and essentially I wrote down a point and a few bullets for every page, and then I had enough content so that by the time I was happy with the density of it, it ended up being 70-ish pages.
That's great. So how would you characterize the level of effort? Was it a huge pain for a long time? Was it no big deal? Was it mostly a curation exercise that took you maybe 5-10 hours? Or was it, like, how big of an undertaking was it?
I had it done in a weekend. Like, I was super excited. I had it done in a weekend. But the material, the content for it, was essentially a curation effort of things that I had been posting about as a result of doing TPS and the podcast.
Yep. Love it. Okay. That's fabulous. And now you also, I think the phrase you used was you started talking to more tech leads about it. What did you mean? Do you mean on LinkedIn, or were you reaching out to people? Like, how did people come to know about this thing?
Well, usually I had to sort of ask them questions or connect with them or do this sort of cold calling style engagement with them, or they would still contact me through marketplaces because I was on Code Mentor and Mentor Cruise at the time still. So it was mostly B2C one-on-one with engineers, but I didn't really have a good grip on CTOs or tech leads. Yep. I did have a few gigs going on that level, but I just happened to stumble upon them. They just found me, and then what initially was thought of as a database problem or an architecture problem ended up being actual like system-wide coaching which is actually what I'm doing now. Mm-hmm. But it didn't really stick. Like the discovery journey for them was clumsy. It just happened to be, stumbling upon that I happen to, know more than just databases or know about certain architectures or just a certain language or framework.
Right. Yeah, you like back your way into a consulting engagement. Exactly.
And then, or maybe somebody, or even worse, maybe somebody reached out to me that they wanted to hire me, and then I flipped that interview into maybe some weird sales conversation where I wanted to, and they hate that. Like recruiters especially, they hate that. But I love doing it. I'm a rebel. And that also gave me a lot of information. Just talking to recruiters, it's like, well, you have this problem, I can solve it, but not as this role. Like if you hire me, this contract will bind my hands. And that also gave me a light bulb moment, but I didn't know how to apply it. And then once I had the booklet, that was the first time where my audience, my buyers, they came to me and they said, Denis, I have that problem on page 62 of your booklet, and I don't want to. I don't have enough time to figure it out myself.
Right.
And then we started talking.
Boom. All right. Yeah. So that is huge. So, I mean, I don't know if there's anything I have to add here, but I guess I'll just give the big picture, which is this couple of years long journey of like sort of getting dragged kicking and screaming into content creation, like the podcast and like posting on LinkedIn and having conversations with your past clients and retroactively having the why conversation and starting to understand it all from their perspective and seeing what works and creating all these relationships. Like there's, I don't know if this is literally true for you, but I know from working with a lot of people, especially engineers who have a little bit of like hunker down and code kind of attitude, that the thing that's missing in so many cases is conversations like talking to other people and really listening, especially buyers, but even really any kind of consumer of your content, like really listening and getting feedback about what they want and what they're getting out of what you're creating, and then sort of polishing it, or redirecting it or rephrasing it in a way that is going to make the message that you're trying to communicate actually land with the other person. So I mean, just having more conversations in general, like this, you've just described a way that you probably increased the number of conversations you were having around what people want versus what you do. It's like, I can do these things, but instead of that, it's like, wait, what do people actually want? What are they getting out of this? What is the value that a past client might have gotten from me? And then just slowly iterating through, getting to a point where over a weekend you could put together a booklet that you put on Gumroad that started getting you real clients, like who are maybe not pre-sold, but they're already, not looking for someone else, right? I don't, maybe that's not how it actually played out, but it sounds like the kind of thing where like, oh, the problem on page 62 is exactly what we have, and we don't want to try and figure it out on our own. Is there some way that you can accelerate our progress? Mm-hmm. Is that a fair characterization?
So a few things there. Do you mind if I go into a little bit more detail?
Please do.
So the very last thing you said, that it's pre-sold, it wasn't pre-sold, but it got the door open, and we got to have a conversation where I had authority in fixing the problem for them.
Yep.
And then once because I gave them, they told me, oh, but you're too expensive and we can't do this. And I said, try me. Like, I saw a lot of messy shit in my career. Just give me your dirtiest problem. And then they obfuscated it, sent it to me, and I sent them a little. This is the client I'm working with right now. Just a little Loom video of, hey, I took a look. This is what we could work on. This is what it could look like. And here, look, in 10 minutes, I've changed it into this shape. This is your code base. If I just fix it gently, and I can teach your team how to do this. And they were like, and then it's like, okay, well, I'll think about it. And then it just kept coming and coming and coming. And then other problems from the booklet started rising up in their company. And they just told me, okay, Dennis, this is not a matter of whether we want this, whether we need this. It's just a matter of getting the budget approved.
Yep.
And then that gave me an aha moment of, so you actually want to buy, but you don't manage the budget. So I just said, okay, so now you're on my side. I just need to help you get the budget approved. And they said, well, how much? And I just sent them the proposal, which I wrote with your help, because I was ready for that conversation at that point. I just didn't know how the why conversation that was missing. So that's one thing. The second thing, I did publish the book on Gumroad, and I set up a fee for zero plus.
Yep.
And I did actually make some sales from that. So that was also a nice little extra revenue stream.
Cool.
Because I was surprised. Like, the booklet was, to me, fairly simple, but a lot of people took value from it. And then they were just like, oh my God, this is like, it's simple, but I'm happy paying, $20 for this little dense little booklet of information. Similar to the tiny MBA.
Yep.
That surprised me. Like, that surprised me. That was an unexpected win. Mm-hmm. And the other thing you said is, when you said, okay, I went back and spoke retroactively to my clients, it wasn't just my clients, because I come from a sort of agency or even full-time employment background and freelancing. So I primarily went and spoke to my coworkers. And
interesting.
And because I didn't have a history of freelancing or consulting it's just where I ended up just pursuing a more job hopping style software career, which is quite popular nowadays. Mm-hmm. Especially with remote work. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to look for a job where I have to work in the office here in Ljubljana in Slovenia. I'm just going to go ride out this wave of remote work during COVID and see what happens.
Yeah.
And I started talking to my coworkers, because from my conversations, especially on the podcast, I've realized that the biggest misfortune in our industry is that a lot of engineers have never been on a good project.
Oh, that's interesting.
And I happen to have the luck of being on a good project.
Yeah. That's why they're so cynical. That's why they think,
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And I had the fortune of just meeting the right people at the right time and being on a good project. And when I left that company, they followed me. or I followed them, and we recreated that culture at a new company. And then I had the conversation of like, why did we do this together? Like, because that was fun. Those were like the golden days. That was really cool.
Right.
And then,
hey, making a
and
difference.
then we opened, and we were making a difference. And then everybody had spoke about that they said, Dennis, when you were in charge and we were doing the project your way, it felt like everybody had superpowers.
Oh, I hope that's on your that should be the headline on your website.
It's coming. It's why I'm doing TPS, Jonathan.
That's great. That's a killer quote.
We got twins 3 months ago. Give me a break.
Fair enough. Congratulations, buddy.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, so this idea of 10x developers, that's what it felt like. Not on a productivity level, but just emotional level. Everybody is disgruntled, and they're maybe cynical, as you said, or maybe they're discouraged or just unfulfilled.
Yeah.
Because also that seminar that I did in between the TPSs was about life coaching. So I also got life coaching training because I'm a recovering analytical left-brainer. I wanted to see what's on the other side.
Yeah.
And that really helped me. It's like, okay, how can we get fulfillment? How can we get fulfillment and that kick-ass hell yeah feeling for developers without forcing them to go vegan and do yoga? Then it dawned on me that, hey, just show them how you run projects. Like, show them what Dennis does when everybody has superpowers. And that's what got the ball rolling. And that's where I am right now.
That's great. Okay, so what was it? Let's switch into your business a little bit here. So at this point in time, how are things improving business-wise for you? I mean, it sounds good if clients are coming straight to you. Can you quantify it at all?
So I got, let's say, I went from just cold calling and having 1 or 2 engagements per quarter that were on a retainer worth 2 to 4K per client. I am now attracting clients that are signing 3 to 6K per month retainers on a regular basis.
So that's roughly double.
Let's say roughly doubled. Yeah, roughly doubled is the right scale, I would say.
Nice.
But not even roughly doubled. But I would say roughly doubled, and I'm underpricing because the sort of feedback I'm getting is over the moon.
Excellent. Okay. So I'm tempted to interrupt the story, but I'm just going to take a note and loop back to it. So we're up to the current time basically.
Mm-hmm.
And you just had twins. What's your week look like? Is it heads down client work? How much time are you spending doing content creation things on LinkedIn or podcasting? I know it's a weird time to ask because you're still in the thick of things with the kids, but when things kind of normalize parentally, what do you think your week looks like? Your income roughly doubled, but are you working twice as much?
I mean, my income more than doubled. It's the thing with the workload is it didn't go up too much because I just stopped doing the unimportant things and just focused on the things that brought value, which is also what my whole coaching is about. It's about deciding what not to do on a project and how to not get distracted. So my day to day is, I start off, I plan my day. My day is already to some degree pre-planned. I see if my day needs any kind of tactical adjustment, short term. I have a few focus sessions. I have a few B2C clients, which are one-on-one. That's a monthly retainer. And I sell my services small, medium, large. Small is I'm coaching one-on-one. Medium is I'm coaching a leader and their team. That means I'm coaching the leader 90 minutes per week and have a tactical session and a strategic session with the team. So one of them is a bit more theory, one is a bit more hands-on. And then the large engagement is me also being included as part of their team. And then rather than telling you, I also show you.
Yep. Okay.
That's basically it. And my week is basically just managing those weekly engagements. I also mentor on a bootcamp for a bootcamp in Africa for up-and-coming software engineers, sort of engineers who are mid or senior-ish level but want to go higher but don't know exactly how to navigate that.
Right.
So it's just juggling, let's say, half a dozen of one-on-ones with 1 or 2 companies at a time, which are either on the medium or large track.
Got it.
And then downtime I spend with the kids, have, brunch time blocked off a few key days of the week. And the evenings I spend just anytime I get an idea, I have this like very regimented Notion document style where if I get an idea, even during coaching, oh, this was key, this was nice, I write it down. I just write down the title, and then in the evening I write and schedule essentially posting on LinkedIn for the next day or the next 2-3 days, depending on how much content accrued. And I've been posting every day for the past every day except Sundays for the past 4 months. Babies included.
Wow. Yeah, it's addictive, that streak. You don't want to break it.
Yeah, I'm on a good streak.
Somebody asked me once if I would ever stop doing daily emails, and I said I would be terrified to do that. Terror. That would be very scary. So, okay, so that's excellent. Can you, I want to drill in on a couple of like sort of, I'm imagining some question marks in people's minds. It might be like silly small things, but still They can be blockers. So you mentioned B2C a couple of times. What do you mean when you say B2C? It's business to consumer, but like
it's
in your
individual
context.
Engineers who are either in between jobs or are learning something that they know they do not have permission to apply at their job, wanting to boost their career in case they move or in case their manager gets switched.
Right. And they are paying for this, or they convince their manager to pay
They are paying for this.
Okay. So so I agree with that. It's like when the buyer is the user, it does. I would characterize it as B2C because it's a different kind of sale than B2B where somebody's spending somebody else's money.
Correct.
Okay.
So
that's cool.
What also the thing I don't like doing, I don't like doing isolated workshops, which is why I isolate this kind of offering to B2C. It's just one-on-one, and I cater it immediately to what they need. And I ask them specifically, okay, are you going to apply it? No. Okay, then I'm not going to teach it. Are you gonna switch jobs? Okay, well, what would be practically useful? Or if you think this is over the moon, what would be the first step to see whether that's actually true? So I'm just trying to, bringing in that life coaching experience that I had, just try to get all of their obstacles on a sheet of paper and just going through them one by one to have them make some kind of practical move tomorrow.
Yep.
And that is why I also, when I coach a team, we're not having workshops. We are working on their most critical feature that they have in the sprint that week. We're not isolating ourselves and doing something, because then there's another layer of translation. You go to a conference, they have workshops, you learn something there, but then when you come home, you then need to translate what you learned to, but how can I apply this to my work?
Right.
I do it the other way around. I have a large curriculum that I can talk about. I can talk about domain-driven design, event modeling, event sourcing, CQRS, test-driven development, emotional management skills, soft skills, how to do agile the right way without Scrum, how to do just practical. I call it tactical agility. Just practical life skills of just talk to the customer, find out what's valuable, and then do nothing else.
Yes, great point. Find out what's valuable and then do nothing else.
Correct. And I do that by talking to their leader, thinking, okay, what's a priority this week? And then knowing what their priorities are, what they're struggling with, I send out a questionnaire gauging the sort of stress levels of the team. And then that week, I speak either if it's theoretical or practical, usually both. I tackle a problem that immediately solves that priority. That can help accelerate, or just, it might, in most cases, it's not only what they want, it is an alternative that they haven't even considered that is possible. Right.
Yeah. That's a key distinction. It's a question that comes up all the time. When you hear comments like, the customer's always right, or do what they need, not what they want, things like that. It's like, if you can distinguish, it's a great habit to be in, like across the board, life, business. If you can notice when someone is asking for an implementation, they're asking for a solution, they have self-prescribed a course of action that they are not qualified, or that maybe you're more qualified to help with, and saying like, finding a way to decrease the cost, right? So they come to you and they say, oh, we need this. And you're like, why? Like, what are you hoping to achieve with this? Let's pick something from outside of software. Like somebody, your copywriter, someone comes to you and says, oh, we need a 40-page white paper. There's like 2 ways to respond to that.
I actually, do you mind if you keep it to software? Because I have a very good counter
you
example.
do it then. Yeah, you do it.
Yeah, because usually they tell me, hey, Dennis, they won't come and tell me, hey, Dennis, I need this implemented. They come to me specifically, through my booklets and my content. They come to me with, Dennis, our company is X years old. We've changed 7 teams. And this culture, this habit always sticks. We don't have tests. We want to deploy, but then we're not sure. And then we're always late. Like, regardless of who we put on this task, these same cycles happen and it's killing our business. It's super expensive. People are leaving. People are demotivated. I feel like I can't get anything done. So they will continue building what the next feature, but it's not really about the next feature, which is what they want or what their outcome is, but it is also this added nuance of, or the team building it has commoditized itself. And the side effect of being commoditized is they will just leave the company when they get bored or frustrated enough, and then they'll have to repeat this cycle again. And then they'll just churn out commoditized features that may or may not be ready or of high enough quality, or even maybe just way too late on the market.
That is really fascinating to think about, like, because I don't deal with employees normally. And the idea of becoming commoditized, perhaps of your own volition, just to like do the minimum effort for the salary.
Exactly.
It also has the function of making you not give a crap about anything that you're doing, because you're doing the bare minimum to like not get fired.
So to give you an example, I work with companies where there's just an overwhelming culture of, Dennis, this is a 5-year-old code base. We don't have any tests and we don't know how to write tests. And this is now part of our culture. We just don't do tests. We just don't know how. Yeah. And they hire me. And then week 1, we finish with a few tests in their critical code paths. And everybody's like, whoa, this was fast.
It wasn't that hard.
It wasn't that hard, but it got part of their identity. So for them, it was extremely difficult, right? So they have started self-identifying with, we're just a cost center. The tech department was at some point a profit center and about product, and then it became a commoditized cost center, and then all the bad habits got introduced and they stuck. So the team,
interesting.
The tech team primarily optimized for producing legacy code. It wasn't really like product oriented code that then essentially got abandoned slowly, but it was abandoned before it got launched. It was written in such a way that it became stale before it even reached the customer. And that lag time of how long it takes for it to be stale, for them particularly, wasn't the negative, and they didn't see a way out. It's like getting a personal finance problem where you are constantly in credit card debt, and the only solution that you see is getting more, taking up another loan or another credit card, and then you play this game of optimizing margins and fees, and and you're playing small, and then the team ends up being commoditized because they play way too small. I tell them, well, what if you could deploy every day? What if you did have tests for the critical code paths? What if you could just start a feature today, have something to show tomorrow, not what you expected on Wednesday, pivot on Thursday, and on Friday, when your product person asks you, hey, when will this be done? Rather than saying maybe next month, you say, well, this is what we have now. You can have that. Or on Tuesday, you can have a small improvement. And they're like, Dennis, cool. Okay, how much?
Rad. I mean, we're like totally getting into your actual focus area of expertise.
Yes. But your audience is, I believe, I don't think it would be lost in the...
not at all. Right. It's super duper resonating. It's fascinating. I don't know. I mean, I've been in software for a godzillion years, and it's like... and still you've raised a couple of points that I think are novel, or at least I haven't heard. I don't pay attention to it that much anymore, but some really novel stuff in there that I'm sure is just the overall message of like think bigger, and I can't. My brain is just hung up on wanting to grind on the disengagement of the employees. So like, in a sense, kind of putting their disillusionment, creating their own disillusionment by playing small is really interesting, and thinking that like switching to another company is going to change that won't work.
Yeah. And the problem really that I saw is that once 80% of the team becomes like that, you hire a star who's super optimistic, and he will absorb that culture. He or she will absorb that culture from the team.
Yeah, of course.
And then it becomes a self-perpetuating cycle.
Yeah. Wild.
And I know how to resist that, because I come in and they say, well, Dennis, we don't do tests. And I say, hell no. Today we are. Today on Dennis session, we are. We have on the calendar, it says Dennis time. And I tell them, it's going to suck. You're going to slow down, but you're only going to slow down on the sessions that you have with me.
Right.
Everything else, you do however you want. And over time, I will help you get it smooth enough so that you can subconsciously apply it in everyday work. So you don't have to think about this knee-jerk reaction of, well, I need to do the right thing, but I'm in a hurry. I need to do the right thing, but then the code base, but then if I open this, then I need to do that, and then you just get lost. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things, and cognitive overload hits, and they're just stress takes over. Lunchtime, boom, gone. Repeat next day.
Wow, you've definitely been in the trenches. That is hilarious. Yeah, right. It's like you get them hooked. Slow is smooth, and smooth is fast. Get them hooked on it. Like, we're going to do it. I'm going to hold your hand for the next hour. We're going to do this. It's going to be done. And you're going to be like, the next time you go to run this thing, you'll be like, oh, I don't have to worry about that.
Yeah. And then the tactical sessions essentially become, you come to me with an impossible task and we deal with it in 90 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
With what seems to them an impossible hurdle. Yes. So, so it is what I'm dealing with is their own self-inflicted limitations that are part of their company culture. And then we sort of slowly, gently unravel that.
Well, I'm sure we could talk about this all day. I think at this point we could probably leave it there. I think what you are describing sounds to me like a super valuable combination of, air quotes, soft skills, hard skills, in the trenches knowledge, and tactics to use that will actually work to accomplish the objectives of the client. So it's no wonder to me that as you've sort of begun to share more of this freely on social media and, potentially for free on Gumroad or whatever else, it seems like a message is going to resonate with really anybody who's got a product team and a software team that's trying to implement it, and is just it feels like molasses. They're just employee churn is high, mood is dark, people are just complaining all the time. So,
you've been in the industry, you know how it is to be on a team like that.
Oh God, yeah. That's why I'm laughing. It's like nothing's changed. The last time I can remember facing this and reacting the way you are, I'm just like looking at it wasn't usually employees. It was usually like an outside agency that had been in a relationship with a client for a long period of time. And,
but at least they are paid well for it, because the longer they take, they get paid more.
Right. But then the client is starting to be like, we're paying a lot and we're getting less and less every month.
And then they want to decrease their hourly rates
or switch to someone else, or like, it's just a mess.
And that's a whole harrowing rabbit hole on its own.
Yeah. So it's a little bit different, but it's a similar kind of thing where it's like, there's a lot of finger pointing. Well, we would be getting more stuff done if they weren't overthinking the product, or we wouldn't need to overthink the product if like these releases were actually functional and weren't full of bugs.
Correct.
It's just
correct. If you weren't so slow, half of your problems wouldn't even be on the table. You wouldn't even have a retrospective to go through issues that happened throughout the last 2 weeks, because you would have deployed the important thing on Wednesday, and the client would be happy.
Yeah.
And then you can, as long as you deliver value, you can still make a mess. But it has to be in the right cadence, in the right order.
Yeah. You said something earlier that I actually wrote down, which is this. Maybe we could leave it here. Find out what's valuable and then do nothing else. It's great.
Yeah. So we're eliminating waste, not improving what you're doing already.
Mm-hmm. All right, sweet. Well, this has been great. Where can people go to find out more about what you're doing? Maybe find your booklet on Gumroad or your website. So
I just recently updated my LinkedIn profile. It really has become my nexus. So my LinkedIn profile, Denis Čahuk, has the important bits. I can do a tech debt audit for you in case. So if you want to figure out whether you actually have these problems and whether I can help, there's a very simple way of getting in touch with me to get a little bit of a status report on that. You can find all of my content there, and there's a link to the Technologist podcast, which is my podcast on YouTube, and now from last week onward on LinkedIn as well, where I talk to people in the industry that are essentially of similar opinions, but from different tactical or cultural or even just language or framework or industrial niches.
Awesome. Great. Well, thanks again.
Thank you, Jonathan. This has been a blast. Luna here is sleeping in my arms. She really enjoyed this. She's like, oh, okay.
She likes listening to daddy talk.
Yeah, she does. The white noise of the computer and everything.
Exactly. Cool. All right, folks. Well, that's it for this week. I'm Jonathan Stark, and I hope you join me again next time on Ditching Hourly. Bye.